And now I want to tell you about the Work Ready program. Work Ready has been running from December of 2020 all the way through and will run until December of 2021. The purpose of the program is to help folks who are affected by COVID to get a job or for folks to improve their work situation. And by that, I mean get a raise, get a promotion, or to be able to plan a more sustainable career path. And we're helping you do that in three ways. One, we're lending out laptops and Wi-Fi hotspots at 20 library locations. In order to get a laptop, all you have to do is go to our website, lacountylibrary.org, click on the Work Ready link, and fill out a very short registration form. You get those laptops for 6 weeks, and you can do that at any time. The second way Work Ready is helping is by what we're doing here today, live events about all sorts of work topics. Finally, we're buying the latest and greatest work-related books, test prep, job skills, career planning, resumes, cover letters, interviews, anything you can think of related to careers. We've got that for you, both as books that you can order via our catalog, also at lacountylibrary.org, or as ebooks, which you can check out even right at this moment without leaving your chair. And that's the Work Ready program. And now I would like to introduce you to our presenters today. Jennifer Delatte is the Workforce Development Coordinator for U.S.VETS in Los Angeles at Patriotic Hall. She oversees the Career Development Program and helps veterans find gainful employment. Jennifer is a proud United States Army Reservist and a military spouse and has a bachelor's degree in human resource management and over 7 years of experience in human resources, recruiting, and management. She's passionate about helping veterans find meaningful careers and succeed in civilian employment. And she's joined today by Alex Noguera, who spent 10 years in the Navy and is currently a Navy reservist. He joins us here as the military liaison for Raytheon Technology, a role he has held since 2018. And with that, I'm going to turn you over to Alex and Jennifer.
Hi,
There it is.
everyone. All right. Well, I am super excited to introduce you all to my good friend, Alex, who is the recruiter over at Raytheon Technologies. He's going to give a little introduction about himself and talk just briefly about some openings that he has at Raytheon. So welcome, Alex.
All right, thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate that. Same for you, Oleg. Appreciate the introductions. So I'm glad to be here. My name is Alex. I am the military liaison for Raytheon Technologies. Okay, so my specific job is to help be the conduit between a potential applicant, right? So when you apply, and then be the conduit between you and either the recruiter or the hiring manager. Okay, so to basically, hopefully, get you in front of that hiring manager to answer any questions about resumes, help with resume writing, interviewing, things of that nature, what our culture is like, things of that, like that, and mentor you through the process. So just like Oleg said, I am currently a Navy reservist. I've been in the Navy now 10 years. Looking forward to the next 10, trying to hit that sweet spot of retirement. So I'm looking forward to that. I am a CB, so for any CBs out there on the call, hoorah CBs. So super excited about that. I got out active duty in 2018, and shortly thereafter, I came into this role. So I've been able to help a lot of the veterans because, of course, being one of myself, that's a near and dear to my heart. So to be able to help veterans come on board to a great organization like Raytheon, it's a great honor to be a part of. So just a little bit about myself. We have a lot of right now open job opportunities. We have, I think, over 3,000 opportunities right now, and it's just going to continue to grow. So we'll go over a lot of the stuff like that throughout the presentation. As Jennifer goes through and stuff, we'll definitely, I'll hit some stuff up too. And currently, right now, it's just for everyone to keep in mind. We're looking for a lot of different jobs, such as like cyber, IT, a lot of logistics, supply chain. Um, we have an immediate need right now currently for an electronics integration technician. So if there's anybody that has any type of in the Navy, we call them fire controlmen. The Air Force, I don't know what that would be called, but in the Army, they're called fire controlman specialists. So anyone that has those type of skills, we do have an opportunity right now. It's an immediate need. So I'll definitely will answer questions as we continue along. But that's it for me right now. Back to you, Jennifer.
Perfect. Thank you, Alex. Go Army. Today we're going to talk about knowledge, skills, and abilities, things that you guys have learned, core competencies that you've gained throughout the military, and how you can relate that to civilian employers on your resume as well as during the interview process. We're going to talk about mission and core values and how to demonstrate that on your resume, substitute wording to use, and then some do's and don'ts of resumes and interviews. I would like to keep this presentation pretty interactive, so you'll hear a lot of back and forth between me and Alex, and he's going to give you some solid examples of what to do and what not to do, what he likes to see on resumes and what he likes to hear in interviews. That way you're not getting a death by PowerPoint here. If you would like a copy of this presentation, please feel free to drop your email into the chat. That way Oleg can give that to me and I know who to send this out to. And once again, thank you guys. So we're going to start with knowledge, skills, and abilities. So of course, you know, we're all professionals, right? Humble professionals. So how can you demonstrate that during an interview and on your resume? So of course you want to appeal to your personal branding, right? Show up, right place, right time, looking the part, and demonstrating, you know, what you do well, showing your worth and your value. You understand the value of a professional reputation, right? You live those core values, you know how to present yourself, right? Customs, courtesies, all those good things. Your time management skills are precise, they're on point, right? If you're late, there's repercussions for it. That still happens in the civilian world. So time management is definitely a keyword that you want to use on your resume, and talk about your ability to maintain your, you know, your calendar and your time management while you're on the job at work. And of course, we're reliable. You can always count on us in the military. We'll get the job done. You just have to demonstrate that in the interview. So Alex, what are some things that you like to see and hear as it pertains to professionalism when you're interviewing or reviewing resumes?
Yeah, so when it comes to interviewing, right, and maintaining that professionalism, one of the big key things, right, is making sure that, you know, typical military, right? Yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, unless you are, you know, told, hey, you can call me this, right? Or you can, you know, always mind, you know, your P's and Q's, right? Be very respectful, avoid, not having that eye contact, right? You need to have eye contact, you know, and have a positive demeanor when it comes to interviewing. There's been, you know, a lot of examples where folks are, you know, either way too relaxed, you know, in a Hawaiian shirt and flip flops, you know, coming in, and then you get the ones that are just super serious, and they just kind of freeze up, you know. So just relax, you know. You know, trust me, I get it, right? I understand when, especially when you're in an interview, you're like, oh my gosh, how should I be? Um, Prime example, I use myself. When I got interviewed for this position, I really went into it, you know, like the Navy has a lot of boards, you know, and
I
so
always tell people this is not necessarily the boards.
Exactly, right? So I went in like a board. So I went in like really stiff, really like straight, you know, and they're like, hey, relax, it's all right. So when I was able to relax and just answer the questions like a normal person, right? Just be normal, just be very respectful. You know, they like that. They like that personability. So just be very personable and just very respectful.
Yeah, you absolutely want to show people that you're going to be a good cultural fit. And this is something that I'm actually exploring right now in my master's class is culture, organizational culture. And what do we mean by organizational culture, right? What is a good culture? What is the culture there? Well, you kind of have to do your company research first and understand, you know, and that's also a question that you guys can ask in the interview as well, is explain the culture. Tell me what it's like to work here. And that way you can kind of tailor your responses and your body language and, you know, everything about your experience in that interview to understanding what that culture is. So you don't have to stand at parade rest. You don't have to stand at attention. Interviews should be a conversation, but you should still remain professional like we know you will. Moving on to teamwork, of course, you guys are motivated, right? Downright motivated. So you motivate others. You can uplift your team, right? You can keep them going even when times get tough. So just demonstrate how you motivate others. And of course, you're going to want to use words like teamwork, collaboration on your resume. Hold yourself and your team accountable. Accountability is everything. So if you make a mistake, and you might even get a question like this in your interview, tell me a time when you made a mistake. Your first words were, of course, absolutely. Everybody makes mistakes. I held myself accountable. This was the situation, and this is how I fixed it. You always want to bring solutions. We are solution people, right? So you always want to put and demonstrate that you hold yourself accountable on your resume. You understand your role in accomplishing organizational objectives, understanding where their strategies are. And that's a great question to ask in the interview process is, tell me some of your strategies. Where is the company going? Where is the company planning to be in 5 years? And how do I fit into that model, right? So ask those types of questions and show them that you understand that you're very mission driven. And those are things that you can put on your resume. Accomplishes the mission, always, takes care of the tasks at hand. Results driven, same thing, right? You're dedicated to the tasks at hand, and you have outstanding communication, right? Verbal, written. You can, talk to the C-suite. You can talk to your associates. You want to show that you're diverse in how you communicate. Alex, how do you like to see teamwork demonstrated on the resume as well as in the interview?
Yeah, so when it comes to the interview, I like how you gave that example of when they ask you the question, because one of the questions that they will ask, and I know they will ask, is tell me a time where you had a difficult situation, such as with either a coworker or a supervisor, right? And most folks like, oh man, well let me tell you, right? And, you can't have that attitude, right? You have to. I like to say ended on a fairy tale ending, right? So how do fairy tales end, right? The happily ever after. Give them an example of how you were able to overcome this situation and still be able to accomplish the goals and using teamwork or some sort of middle ground that was met. So that is the biggest thing, and that right there, that question is it sounds like it's a loaded question, but as long as you know how to answer it and answer it professionally and answer it without saying, yeah, I didn't like this person, don't do that, right? It's a big no.
You
So
don't want to present conflict
no,
and that you can't get
no.
along with your team members. That's a huge one that
Mhm.
they're going to be looking for.
Correct. And that's what this question's about. That's why I think it hits all those bullet points right here, because they're going to see, okay, how did you deal with it? What did you do to accomplish the goals? How did you promote teamwork? How did you use the teamwork to be able to get to overcome that obstacle? And how was your communication throughout the whole process? So make sure that you understand, that you answer that question, and use an example where it did. And even if it was, a little different of how you got to your goal, make sure you use it, that example where, yes, this is what I did, this is how I did it. We use, this type of collaboration network now moving forward, and we overall accomplished our mission. So that it's all going to boil down to that question.
Absolutely. Perfect. And then, of course, mission focused kind of goes hand in hand with some of these bullet points up here in teamwork, but supporting strategic goals, right? They might ask you, they might present you with some challenges that the organization is facing, and they're going to want to see how you can resolve those issues and how you can plan for the future. So they're going to want to see that. And a lot of my officers, my senior NCOs, these are bullet points that are speaking to you. Project management, right? Precision, strategic planning. You've all had a hand in that if you are an officer or a senior NCO. So definitely pull from your military experience. Don't hesitate to really dive into that. Just try not to use too much jargon and acronyms. The military, we love our acronyms, but try to really think through, go through some of your evaluations and look at some examples of how you contributed to the overall mission of, maybe a deployment or trainings, field exercises, things that you had to help plan at a very high level, right? And of course, we maintain confidentiality. We always practice operational security, and we don't want to give too much we don't want to give any classified information, but we don't want to give too much detail. Even though, of course, we do pay attention to the details, we don't want to divulge any of that information on our resume or during an interview. So be mindful of that. Alex, anything you want to say about mission focus?
I mean, the biggest thing, right? Just like you said, the acronyms, right? That's one thing I would like to talk about.
Yeah, we'll talk
You,
about that later in the
yeah, yeah,
presentation.
yeah, and we'll talk about that later, right? So I get that, but just stay focused on the interview, right? So one of the things that does get brought up is, tell me a little bit about yourself, right? Well, a lot of folks give a 5-10 minute speech, right? They're not looking for that. They're looking for a 2 minute quick, how can you do this jobs, right? So stay focused, right, on how, you're going to meet the goals, how you qualify for what you're there for, right? So, paying attention to detail, right? That's a big one that they make sure that when you're speaking that they really do look in, pay attention to when you're speaking. So make sure you stay on track, stay on point, um, and continue to move the conversation forward.
So just quick one point about that. We definitely here at U.S.VETS, we love to train people how to interview, how to think like the recruiter, how to prepare for some of those mock questions, those behavioral questions, right? Some of those technical questions. But with that, we always teach you guys the STAR method, and that's situation, task, action, result. This method is really going to help you keep your answers short, sweet, to the point, and you won't deviate too far from the question. So attention to detail and staying on track with your answers, great point. All right, let's move to the next slide. Customs and courtesies. So we all know how to build strong relationships and partnerships. That's part of, day zero, going through basic training, where you're building your relationships. You're kind of finding out, the people that you can count on to the left and to the right of you. Building those partnerships. If you've ever had to work, if you're maybe in the Air Force and you've had to work, alongside the Army, building those relationships with the different branches and, coming together to fulfill a mission. That's a huge part of what we do. Battle buddies, things like that. Excellent customer service, especially when you're, working from, section to section, having great customer service that also translates to your respect for, higher ranking officials and things like that. You work well within a hierarchy. The military is a hierarchical structure, right? So respect, understanding your leadership, respecting boundaries, things like that. And you're disciplined, right? We are all disciplined. That's the number one thing we're taught from the get-go. So we all have these skills, and I want you to make sure that you put these things on your resume, and you talk about these experiences in your interviews. Anything to say about this point?
Yeah, so when it comes to the resume, right, and portraying these type of traits, a lot of the things that they do look for, right, is um, when you put on the requirement that you met the specific requirement, you met this specific goal, they will ask, right, well, how did you get there, right? And putting on here, well-disciplined, individual, and however you want to word that, right? That is a sign that they're going to ask you because you're putting it on there, right? So they're going to ask you, okay, well, tell me. So making sure that you do have great customer service skills, right? You work well within the hierarchical structure, right? That's the military, that's anywhere, right? So, and you have the ability to build those strong relationship and partnerships. In the resume, the word teamwork, that one's the one that's used all the time. So that's another one that will come up. So, that's pretty much what I want to add to that one for now.
Perfect. Yeah. And, going along with discipline and hierarchical structure, right? Everything in the military is policy, procedure, SOPs, right? So if you've implemented those, if, you enforced SOPs, with your team members and things like that, be sure to put that on there. Especially if you're applying for a federal job or things like that, they're going to want to know that you have experience with SOPs and policy, procedure, and all that stuff. Resilience. I mean, this is a huge one. I want to see this. If you ever went to a master resiliency school and you got additional duty doing, as a teacher or an instructor teaching resiliency, put that on there under your education. Stress management, handling high pressure situations. This is what we deal with all the time, especially in deployments. Handling multiple projects at once. I mean, we're constantly multitasking, right? And that's a word that you should be using on your resume. Ability to multitask swiftly and efficiently, right? You can take feedback and handle tough conversations. If you're applying for management, this is a quality that they're looking for. It's not easy to have these tough conversations with our peers and with our people who we report to. So if you can do that, which is what we're taught to do and how to handle during, NCOERs and, just tough conversations all around in the military. It happens all the time. Put that on your resume, demonstrate that. You might even be asked a time where maybe you had to give pushback, right? That's a tough conversation to have. And that's actually one of Amazon's leadership principles. You push back with respect. And so if you ever had a situation like that, definitely talk about that. Anything to say about resiliency?
Yeah, and I agree with that, and that's where it goes, right, to that question, because they do use the STAR method, right? So that question of tell me a time where you had a difficult, either supervisor or coworker, and how did you deal with it, right? The ability to handle the stress is what they're looking for, right? The ability to handle that pressure, right? And being in the military, a lot of us, the majority of us, pretty much all of us, right, have to handle it at one point or another. It's gonna come, right? And being in 10 years already, for myself, there's been so many times, whether on training or deployments, right, stuff like that. There's so much that comes at you, so much multitasking, and if you're able to, when you translate that over to a resume, that is a big key, right? They do want to see, the resilience, the ability to overcome, and
Yep.
to continue to persevere through. One of the things that I would add is if you have a mentor, right? If you have
Good
some
one.
sort of a mentor that you can go to and talk to, right? And they bring up these questions, you can bring that up. It's okay to say, I do got a mentor, and this is how they helped me get through this, because especially for an organization like Raytheon, we have what's called an employee resource group.
Yes.
And we have one specifically for veterans. So I have a mentor in that program. I have actually two. So it's a great opportunity to be able to talk and get somebody else's point of view that you trust and build that relationship with, right? Going back to custom and courtesies, right? Building that strong relationship and partnership with another person, right? To be able to get you through those stressful situations. So
Good.
yeah, that's a big one to have on there to be able to show.
Yep. Yeah, and guys, if you have mentors, your section NCOICs, your battle buddies, people that have helped you through your military career, count on them to be your references. So when you do get the job and they want to check your references, remember, those are the people that you can count on that are going to give you a really good recommendation. So keep that in the back of your mind. Positional leadership. If you've ever been a squad leader, section NCOIC, platoon leader, sergeant, officer, those are great leadership positions that you should be talking about and pulling your examples from during that time. You can use words to substitute for those because not every civilian career knows what a squad leader or a platoon sergeant is. So use team lead, use supervisor, manager, director. You know your people, right? And that's a really important part of management, is knowing who your people are, not just on a professional level. You know them, right? You maybe know their spouse's name, their kids' names. You know them both personally and professionally, right? And you know how to develop them too. So that's a really good one. And if you've ever promoted somebody under you, talk about that. That's huge. People want to hire great leaders, not just managers, but leaders. And that's the difference between leading and managing. Has somebody promoted from under you? Have you mentored somebody? Have you given people the tools versus just barking orders and delegating out? Have you actually taken the time to show them and given them some really great direction? Not just, okay, took accountability. I know they're here, they're punching the clock and micromanaging. They don't want that. People don't want micromanagers. They want leaders. And you all have that experience. And just make sure that you put your leadership courses, like I spoke about before, any additional duties. If you were a SHARP representative, an EO representative, if you were a master fitness trainer, if you were a drill sergeant, if you were a recruiter and you had additional leadership duties, put those on your resume. They want to see that. And those are great talking points. Alex, anything about positional leadership?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. So, just like you pointed out, beginning, right? It's squad leaders, first line, platoon leaders. Being in the military, we know what those things are. The civilians do not know what that is. If we put on there, I was a platoon leader for whatever battalion, and this is how many, they're gonna be like, what does that mean, right? We can't do that. So make sure that, just like it's stated, right? Put on team lead, supervisor, manager, director, things like you need to put civilian words, right, where they can see. And just like you stated as well, they want to see if you were able to professionally develop another individual, to see if you were able to, promote more people up, because that's another leadership trait that they want to see. So, and making sure that if you have those experiences, list that on your resume. That is huge, especially if you're trying to go for a manager position. You're in the management position. That is one of the things that they're going to look at. How many folks did you manage? How many did you professionally develop to move forward? What have you done to help others? That servant leadership type of role. So that is, what I'll add to that one.
Perfect. All right, let's jump to the next one. So your degrees of responsibilities, they're going to want to know what have you taken on, initiatives that you've taken on, and the level of responsibility that you've been held to. So rather than using the words responsible for on your resume, you're going to want to say ensured or oversaw or facilitated and things like that. But this, you would talk about this when you were responsible for millions of dollars worth of equipment, right? My logistics, my supply chain people, my infantry people, you all maintained and did maintenance on lots of dollars worth of equipment, right? Your weapons and your gear and anything that was government property is expensive. So make sure that you put that in dollar figures, right? They want to see numbers on resumes. They want to see statistics. Anything that is data should be put onto your resume in numerical values, especially if you're going for, e-commerce jobs and things like that. They're going to want to see that. High level of trust among colleagues. If you've been held to a degree of responsibility, that requires trust and accountability. So talk about that. You definitely want to talk about, the fact that you were given this responsibility because you proved it to somebody. You proved it to your leaders. You can make decisions with sound judgment, right? You can make decisions in highly stressful situations, and you can do risk assessments and risk analysis quickly, swiftly. So talk about that. That's all part of decision making, right? You're thinking about the safety, you're thinking about strategic goals, you're thinking about the mission to make those decisions. And being organized is very important, right? You hold yourself accountable, you take accountability for the things that you have in front of you, your people, right? And that all requires organization, knowing where your people are, knowing who they are, right? So very, very important to really thoroughly describe the degree of responsibility that you've had.
Yeah,
Thinking about,
I agree with that as well, Jennifer. That is on point, honestly, to what you're stating. That you need to be able to detail that on your resume. Handling those type of equipment, how much, dollar amounts. Especially when it comes to like specific supply chain or logistics opportunities. I'm telling you, they are going to want to know that stuff. So on
yep,
point, and completely right.
perfect. And my NCOs, don't sell yourself short. You definitely have project management experience, not just because you can manage a lot at once, but you can delegate, you can plan, you can organize, you can control, and you can execute. You can answer to somebody and give them reports and give them updates and do AARs and things like that. You can oversee valuable equipment using that dollar amount again, and you can take risk assessments. You might have even dealt with a budget, right? So this is all project management, and you can actually take your NCO hours if you're going for your PMP and use those for the requirements. So don't sell yourself short, okay? And being flexible, quick, creative, you can problem solve, you can adapt to change in different environments. You can, receive tough feedback like we talked about and actually put that into action, right? And then you can deal with difficult personalities, and that's what we do every day on the job. You're going to have diverse teams, but you need to know how to manage those diverse teams, and that comes with dealing with difficult personalities and giving tough feedback, not just taking it, but giving it. So anything to say about these two last points?
No, I mean you hit the nail on the head. To be honest, just make sure that we meet every single one of those, and we you guys are able to portray that. That's the big thing.
Good, good. So now we're going to jump into mission and core values. Of course, every branch, we can all recite our mission and our core values. And it's important to know the mission statement and the core values of the company that you're applying for and interviewing with. So that is where company research comes in. And I tell all my veteran clients, how did you prepare for this interview today? And what I'm looking for is for them to give me that information. Can you tell me what the company's mission and core values are that you're going to be sitting in an interview with? And this is important because if you don't agree with their mission and their core values, it might not be the company for you. So this is just as much an assessment for you as it is for the interviewer. And the core values of the service branches are valued by civilian organizations, and they might reflect similar values that they hold. So, so it's important to know them. Let me go back. So Alex, what is the mission and core values of Raytheon?
The thing, right? So some of the, like for example, the core values, right? Trust, respect, and accountability. So as you can tell, they're on here but worded a little bit different, right? If you can imagine that builds trust, respect, accountability. That's huge, right? So like for example, the Navy's honor, courage, commitment, right? I don't know what the Army's is, but
Loyalty,
um,
duty, respect, with
see,
service, honor, integrity, and personal courage
see
every
it
day.
right. So if you guys can imagine, look at it, it all aligns, right? And if you really think, like for example, like I said, for Raytheon, trust, respect, accountability, if you are like, hey, you know what, I don't want to be part. I mean, if you don't agree with that, it's like, hey, then just like Jennifer said, maybe it's not for you then. But
For
I mean,
you.
if you're in the military, I mean, the core values are going to be pretty really similar. The mission of Raytheon, right, is to support the warfighter. That's just the honest truth. Continue serving your country even while you're out of uniform, right? That's the truth. That's what we do here. Is to continue that, to make sure that all our warfighters are safe while they're out there. So but yeah, that's pretty much what I want to harp on that a little bit.
Perfect. Yeah, no, and veterans become tremendous assets to those companies because they fully believe in it, right? They understand it, they're aligned already. And that's why you guys do make great candidates. That's why you guys bring such great value, and don't sell yourself short, right? So find the company that works best for you, support the mission of the company that you see yourself supporting. So if you want to continue a career in aerospace and defense, or maybe you want to work in veteran services for me, you know what? Do it, but present yourself well, be able to spit back those core values in that mission. All right, we're going to jump into some word substitution. And I think this is probably my favorite part. As I do resumes for our clients, I tend to notice a lot of the same common acronyms or jargon. And I'm like, okay, we've got to break this down a little bit. And my rule of thumb is your resume should read as if you were telling it to your grandma what you did. Your grandma is not going to know what an MOS is, or what OCONUS means, or recon, but you got to talk to them like you're introducing this for the first time, because you might be. And so you want them to understand exactly what it is, so that they don't say, well, I don't know, and then they throw your resume to the side, right? You really want to give it to them digestibly. So these are some substitute words. So if you commanded a brigade, a battalion, a company, you want to use words like supervised, directed, led, planned. If you were in, if you want to put information about your battalion, your unit, your platoon, use words like organization, agency, department, things like that. If you were supporting a mission, what was your responsibility? What was the task? What was the objective? What was the actual job that you were doing? Rather than some of those words. Going to combat and war, I truly ask that you stay away from some of those details and things. If you're a combat veteran and you really, played a big part in that mission that you carried out, let's use words like hazardous conditions, conflict, and things, rather than using words like war and combat. That might trigger someone, it might turn someone off. So try to use some substitute words around that without downplaying what it is you did. Reconnaissance, right? Analysis, data collection, survey, squad. You can use team members or employees. ORM, risk management, risk mitigation. Nobody's going to know what that means, right? OCONUS, overseas. CONUS, here on soil. PCS, don't use words like PCS. Use words like I relocated or I moved. Fit reps, OERs, NCOERs, evals, performance reviews, right? That's what HR understands as performance evaluations and reviews. Don't use words like MOS, your rate, or your OS. Use words like roles, positions, and your occupation, chain of command, organizational chart or hierarchy, things like that. And these are just some common ones. Of course, we all have our, millions of them. But yeah, so what are some common ones that you see that you're like, man, come on, just gotta take it down a little bit with the acronyms or the jargon. I'm sure you see a lot of it.
Yeah, I mean, so I see all of these all the time. And that's the biggest thing, right? Civilians won't know. Um, the other ones I see is when we put our awards, right? We're very proud of our awards when we get awarded, and
Absolutely.
and I get that, right? I was super proud of my NAMs, right? My Navy Achievement Medals, for those of you who don't know the Navy terms, right? But I was so proud of
Right
that,
now,
or yeah, right, or a com, or something like
Navy
that.
Achievement Medal. Yeah.
Yeah, or com, or things like that. So proud of it, right? But when I put it on the resume, for me, right, when I put it on there, I didn't translate it. So what ended up happening was in my interview, I got questions, right? They asked me, what is that? What does that mean? Why did you get that? So the civilians will not understand. Just like it was stated, you have to put it in terms that they will be able to read. And understand it, right? Just like chain of command. That's a big common one. So many folks, even when they revise their resume and they send it to me, they still have that chain of command. Chain of command. I'm like, don't put that word on there because they're gonna be like,
Yep.
what does that mean to me? If you put organizational chart, they're like, oh, okay, cool. HR folks know that. You know what an org chart
Yeah.
is. So you got to make sure that you do stuff like that. I've seen all types of stuff. I've even seen, our some ones that I've never seen before, that I've never even heard of. Some I guess in the Army that are a little different than the Navy,
Yep.
or same for the Air Force to the Navy, or same thing, or the Marines. The Marines are another one. I've even had to ask, what does that mean? you know, and so you just got to stay away from that. You have to be able to change it. And let's say you have an acronym and you're like, I don't know how to change it. Well, write it out, right? Write it out completely.
Use the acronym if you put it in parentheses, and this is what I
Correct.
do for some people. I'll have them spell it out for me, but I like to ask them, what does this mean? Because I'm actually quizzing them when I'm doing their resume, and they'll be like, oh, well, I know the A stands for, and I'm like, no, we can't have it on your resume if you don't know what it is. I mean, of course you
Right.
know because it's common terminology and you're doing the job and you know what it is, but when you get questioned about it and you can't defend it, that's when the interview goes south. So spell it out. If you still prefer to use an acronym on there, put it in parentheses, but let's at least spell it out, and you need to be able to defend it. And this actually happened to me the other day. I was doing a Marine officer's resume, and he was a very high, involved in some very high level stuff. And he had a lot of these pieces of equipment that he had listed out, and there's a lot of numbers and letters, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what does this all mean? So I had to have him defend it to me. And then sometimes we had to go up and look on Google and just see what it actually stood for. But I don't want it on your resumes, and I don't want you to talk about it in interviews if you don't really know how to describe it, or if you can't explain it, or spell it out for somebody. Similar to, would you put that you speak another language on your resume if you only really know a couple words here and there, you're not fluent, don't put it on your resume if you can't defend it. And I use that rule of thumb.
Correct, that's exactly what I was gonna say. If you don't know what your acronym stands for, it's just like you can't defend it. Don't put it on there, right? And write it out.
Yep.
So you have to make sure you can do all that.
Yep. And also another big one that I should probably put on here is sit rep. I get a lot of that.
Yes.
Sit rep. If I was talking to a civilian employer, they would look at me with 5 heads. Situation report. Spell it out.
Yep.
All right. And my last slide here, I believe, is resumes and interviewing do's or don'ts. Of course, Remain professional at all times. And the reason I have to say this is because if you do get in front of a military hiring liaison like Alex, and he may know what you're talking about, don't feel like you can kick back and put your feet up on his desk and talk to him like even if you were in the Navy and you know that Alex is in the Navy, you're not friends right now. He is your professional subordinate and you are going to talk to him as such. So just remain professional at all times. If you see him loosen up a little bit and you feel like it's okay, that's okay. Not too much. Still remain professional. List your military experience. I have had a lot of people send me their resumes and they're not even putting their military experience on there. Guys, you are special. You are different than all the other candidates. You bring a unique set of skills. You bring unique worth and value to their organization, and guaranteed they are sourcing people like you because you're in the military, because they have military hiring initiatives. Put your military experience on there, and please put it at the top. You're proud, right? And we're proud, and that should be the first thing that they see under your professional summary is military service, what branch you served, your dates, if you choose to put your dates, and your job duties. List your active clearance if you have one, and this is a big one, especially for Alex. If the job description requires you to have a secret or a top secret with an SCI, put it on your resume in bold with the date of your last adjudication. This is really important. Because if you have to, your resume should be tailored to the job description. So if it's requiring that, put it on there. And that's a big one. I know that Alex wants to see that. List your achievements and your awards. Absolutely. Every time I do a resume for someone and I have to add some stuff and, fix some stuff, I always say, are there any awards that you want to put on here? You don't have to list every single service ribbon, but some of your big ones. If you got a commendation medal, a meritorious service medal, hell, if you got a Bronze Star, let's put it on there, because those are some really big things that they want to see. And I always put a little line of just why this award was received. And you'll have all that on your DD Form 214. And of course, hopefully you're saving all of those write-ups too. But your awards and your achievements, they make you special. They make you unique. It shows that you go above and beyond. Let's put that on there. Just like we talked about earlier, list and discuss your leadership roles, because people hire leaders, not just managers. There's a difference. And highlight your teamwork too. Of course, in the interview, you want to talk about you and what you did to contribute to that team. But talk about the teamwork. Talk about the fact that you can collaborate. And discuss any additional duties, both on your resume and during your interview. If you were a career counselor, you're providing guidance. You're helping people stay in their job, right? This is huge. This is part of recruiting, right? This is part of human resources. You know what motivates people to get them to stay. If you are a financial counselor, that's big. Talk about that. If you were a fitness trainer, you took on additional responsibilities. Talk about it. But here's what you should not do. Do not use excessive jargon and the acronyms, right? And like I said, guys, reach out to me. If you want to have a second set of eyes on your resume, feel free. Call me. We'll get it squared away. Do not discuss conflict in detail. You don't want to make anybody uncomfortable. You don't need to give the gory details. Just stay away from it. Don't obviously reveal classified and sensitive information, especially, if you were part of something big, you don't know who you're talking to. That should never be talked about. So don't mention any service-connected disabilities right off the bat. You will fill out your new hire paperwork, and if you do have a disability, you can check that box. But that's not really something you need to be discussing. Don't give any personal health information in an interview. It's not relevant to the job, and you definitely, if you want the job, don't give them a reason to hold something against you. I err on the side of caution. I don't discuss salary up front. If they talk about salary, the best thing to do, and this is what I teach my veterans, of course you want to do some research online. But when that question comes up, you can always say, I looked on, Glassdoor or pay scale. I saw that the salary is between this and this, but can you tell me what you're budgeted for? Because you don't want to sell yourself short. And of course, you don't want to overshoot and disqualify yourself. So always put it back on the recruiter. Let them tell you what they're budgeted for. Of course, have your number in your mind, but don't let that be the first question that you ask out the gate when they say, do you have any questions for me? And of course, never, ever, never badmouth former employers, former colleagues. Don't talk about conflicts that you have between those employers and those colleagues. That shows that you might not be a good cultural fit. It shows that you might not really acclimate well with your team, and it might show that there's a problem child that they might have on their hands. So never talk bad about any former employers. If they asked you why you left your last job, you can tell them that, I left for better opportunities, or I, chose to take a different career path. You don't have to go into any detail, so try to stay away from that. Alex, is there anything you want me to add to this list, or anything that you've encountered during an interview?
Yeah, so being the military liaison, right, and getting veterans to come on board and stuff like that, I've been able to sit on a lot of different interviews and conduct them, with hiring managers, and stuff like that. So one of the things that I will say, when it comes to the interview, maintain professionalism at all times. I understand we're in a virtual environment. I get it, right? But when folks show up literally in a Hawaiian t-shirt, right, to a professional interview with a board of interviewers, that is not recommended. Okay, I'd highly suggest you don't do that. Right, dress professional. Right, they're gonna see you right like you're seeing us, right, from here up. So make sure you dress professional. You look presentable. Um, that's the big thing. The other thing too, don't read off your resume, right? Have your resume with you, but don't read off of it, right? One of the tricks that I like to tell folks is put sticky notes around your screen, right? You can't see my screen, you only see me, but you can put literally sticky notes and key points from your resume all the way around, so that it looks like you're looking at the camera, but you can also see what you wrote, so you can stay confident, right? It's the big thing, stay confident, so you can have that, exuberate that professionalism and know your points. Your clearance. Okay, let's get to the clearance, because that is huge for Raytheon. Okay, being military, Raytheon loves clearances. So to work for Raytheon, the majority of our jobs require a clearance. So civilians normally do not have a clearance, but guess what? Military folks do. So we've already been adjudicated. We've gone through the process. The military has checked everything on us, right? So that is key. Having a clearance, an active clearance, already jumps you ahead of the line. So if you need to make sure to put that on top under the header in bold, that you have a security clearance, and what type of clearance you have or whatever, and when it was adjudicated. That right there is gold. Okay, that is huge, 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 huge. So I'd highly suggest you do that. I do like the additional duties as well. All of this is great information. The additional duties is another big one, right? A lot of us sell ourselves short. We're just like, oh, we just did additional duties. That's not a big deal. No, no, no. It is a big deal. Be proud of it. Put it on there if it relates to the requisition that you're applying for. And the don'ts, right? I agree with every single one of those. The salary, I like that's a great piece of advice. You know, um, don't overshoot yourself, and you're just the managers are kind of like, oh well, I guess not, it's too much, right? Do your research, and put it back on them, right? Because if they want you, salary will be discussed if they call you back and they say, yep, we want to make you an offer, here's our offer. And that's where you can kind of negotiate a little bit and talk about your salary right then and there when you have that phone call, that conversation. And once again, bad mouthing former employers or colleagues, right? That's what I said before. Always end in a fairy tale. Always end in we lived happily ever after, right?
It was rainbows and butterflies.
Yep. Because that's the last thing you want to do. Because just like Jennifer said, that they're going to be like, oh, if you start doing that, you're like, oh, this person may not fit here. So that's what you don't want. But those are the things that I do want to highlight. And I can't stress to you enough how much maintaining professionalism, being in this virtual environment, really is, because folks really take it really relaxed. And because you're either at home or at Starbucks or wherever you're at sitting, in this virtual environment, people just kind of relax and take a chill pill because they're doing that. I'd highly suggest you don't do that with an interview. You stay professional at all times.
Perfect. Yeah. So that was a lot of information. I definitely want to open it up to some questions that our viewers have today. But before I do, I definitely want to thank our funders who allow us to do this and help our veterans at no cost, as well as partner with our employers at no cost for our career fairs and networking hours and these, different things that we do. Our biggest funder is the Call of Duty Endowment. We also have money that comes in from Boeing to help us fund our career development program, as well as Edison, Comcast, and the Carl and Roberta Deutsch Foundation. So thank them for our services. And then I'm going to go ahead and open it up to some questions before I jump into how you can actually get assigned to a veteran talent specialist with U.S.VETS. So Oleg, I don't know if there's a way that maybe we can open it up for questions.
So I've been monitoring the chat. We don't have any new questions.
Okay.
There was somebody who had asked to repeat what STAR stands for, but I already did that. So
Okay.
I didn't
Yep.
see any other questions. If anybody out there has questions, now would be the time to put them into the chat or the Q&A area. And while you have Jennifer and Alex here, they'll be happy to answer your questions. But if not, I mean, you can always contact them by email afterward. I'm sure they'd be happy to hear from you.
Yeah, and Alex, do you want to maybe drop the link for your job site into the chat so that way they can go and check it out?
Yeah, I'll do that right now.
Perfect. And real quick, oh no, did I not put the slide in with how to enlist, oh my gosh, enroll with
I
us.
think
I'll
you
go
may.
ahead and put the link as well, how to enroll with us if you're interested in services. We do provide mock interviews, traditional and federal resume writing, cover letter drafting. We'll send you job leads. We'll partner you up with, somebody that'll kind of talk you through the whole process of the job search. If you're interested in meeting some recruiters, we can definitely do that. We host events. We actually provide financial reimbursement if you get, a work-related certification, or maybe you need clothing for your new job, or a gas card to get to work. We offer all of that in addition to just some great mentorship. So feel free to reach out to me. I'll drop the link in here. All right. And then, Alex, do you have any last minute plugs that you want to do, or maybe tell us about, a fun interview experience, or
I want to
any
hear about a fun
last,
interview experience
yeah.
while we still have
Yeah,
time.
yeah. I mean, so the one that I always, it stuck with me for was so this individual, this is before we went virtual. They legitimately, I have great relationships with a lot of the hiring managers, a lot of different organizations, at being the military liaison, and connecting them with veterans. So this, individual was able to get an interview, um, and it was with a panel. So there was 4 hiring managers waiting for them. Well, what ended up happening was 2 of the hiring managers came out with me to greet this individual. And so there's 3 of us out there. And when the individual showed up, they were legitimately, this is no joke, in a literally Hawaiian floral t-shirt, shorts, and flip-flops. Uh, one of the hiring managers immediately looks at the individual and goes, "Yeah, you're not cut out for this. Please just turn around." Just right off the bat, not even hi, nothing. Just, nah, you're done. That was that was the one that stuck out the most. I've had, some off the wall ones where, people just kind of, never do this. This is one of the big don'ts. Okay, they were asked, "Oh, well, tell me about yourself." They ranted on for about 35 minutes about literally everything
That's a,
they've done.
yep.
They do not do that, because the hiring manager right after they were done was like, "Yeah, I think if we have any more, follow-up questions, we'll call you," and pretty much excused them.
Yeah.
So I've had a lot of different ones. I've had folks where they start discussing salary. Okay, this is an example of salary. And the one thing that you never do is tell the hiring manager that you want to hire you that you can do their job better than they can do their job.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, have had that one, because they started discussing the salary. They wanted all this direct salary, And because they were kind of like, well, that about after your interview, and we'll go from there. If we call you, that's when we talk about salary. Well, then the individual decided to go on and start saying, well, I know I can do your job better than you. And I'm sitting there just kind of like sweating bullets, like, why would you say that when you're trying to get the job? So, I've had plenty of interesting experiences with folks that just kind of off the wall stuff, and just don't do. um, but yeah, the like I said, the funniest one was just the Hawaiian shirt, individual, just kind of like, nope, you can't even come in here, you're done, and so, and the great part, if everyone wants to know, the great part was the follow up. Since I go to the bases, this individual goes to my local base. So when they saw me, they're kind of like, well, I don't know what happened. And I'm like, well, I'll tell you what happened. You shouldn't show up that way, And so the great part was that the hiring manager that was there for the interview was able to speak to this individual, and basically explained, like, hey, this is how you should be. It doesn't matter that you're getting out of the military. This is how you should be all the time. And the cool part about this hiring manager is that they kind of gave this individual a second chance,
Wow,
to
that's rare.
kind of, yeah, to kind of redeem themselves. So it was really really cool to see that, like, in person. But yeah, that was something kind of funny that came across me.
I that's a wow. I used to have people that would show up in socks and flip-flops, and that is just a huge pet peeve of mine. But I know we're getting short on time, but there is something that I really do want to discuss. I know I didn't make a slide about it, and I think going
Jennifer,
forward, this
sorry,
is
we
something.
do also have a few questions.
Oh,
After you do that, we,
oh,
we have a couple of questions that
sure.
came in.
Yeah.
But go ahead,
So
go ahead, and then we'll do the questions.
sure, sure. So I want to talk about value and knowing your worth without being cocky. It's important to be confident, but it's really important not to be cocky. And this is something that, Alex really alluded to is, talking about, well, I could do your job better than you. You definitely don't want to do that. You want to really dive into your experience. You might be able to do that guy's job equally or better, but you really want to demonstrate the value. If you've had certification courses, if you're Lean Six Sigma, if you're PMP, if if you're going for technology jobs, you've got all these great Security Plus, the ISSP. Don't be cocky, but talk about those things, right? And this is where you bring in your value, right? You're unique, you have a unique set of skills, you have great experience, and you were afforded that by the military and by getting your bachelor's or your master's degree. But you definitely don't want to come in there acting like you're better than anyone, because you're sitting in that job, in that seat, and you're being evaluated by people who are going to make or break your next career move. So keep that in mind. Treat these people like you were talking to, your higher ups, right? Your generals, your lieutenant colonels, people like that. You want to make sure that you show them respect, and that comes with, you know, that's not taken lightly. So be respectful and demonstrate your value through your experiences, your certifications, your degrees, but don't come across as arrogant, because the minute that you do, they're already thinking about, okay, who's my next candidate in line. You can really make or break your interview that way. Alex, anything to say about that before we jump to questions?
No, I agree with everything you just said. I guess it's the example that I gave is prime example.
Yeah,
So just stick to that.
perfect. All right, let's go to some questions.
So Michelle asks, for the PMP certification, Jennifer, you mentioned NCO hours. How do you quantify them?
Is that, I'm not the expert on that. I'm going to tell you right now, but I believe that is like a form that you fill out. And I think you can go back to your evaluations and things, and your DD form 214 is something you'll probably have to present as well. So I can connect you with the Onward to Opportunity liaison. Her name is Catherine Warren, and she's the representative that I deal with, who can go through all of that with you. or I can also connect you to Vets to PM. They're another certifying body that we go through to get the study materials and kind of talk through that certification and the logistics of when you'll start the course and things like that. So feel free to email me and I'll get you connected to the right people.
And for all the people out there, I'll be sending a follow-up email as I usually do after our work ready programs, and I'll have both Jennifer and Alex in the CC field so you can contact them directly.
Perfect.
And then the final question I have here, Lloyd asked, is it okay to put military experience at the forefront of a resume if it was some time ago, like 1985 to 88?
Sure. I mean, you don't have to put the dates on there. If you're not comfortable with that, and I tell, people, if you want to avoid any sort of, discrimination with age or anything like that, don't put your dates for your education. You don't necessarily have to put your dates for all that. If you don't necessarily want to go through all those responsibilities and make it a big thing, okay, we don't have to, but I still think that you need to create a nice section at the top of your resume that says veteran. And if you have a professional summary on there, United States, whatever branch you served, veteran, and seeking what kind of role. So still include it in your resume. It doesn't have to be a big section if you don't want it to be, or if you feel like it was some time ago, but still please include it on your resume. Alex, do you have an opinion on that as well that you'd like to add?
Yeah, so the biggest thing, if you're gonna apply and you're interested in Raytheon, the resume, right? The resume is gold, when it comes to us. Now, if you really want to get through if you want to call it the machine, right? Tailoring the resume to the minimum requirements of the position is key. That is like that's a big thing. I know people say, "Oh, keywords, keywords." Okay, it's more than keywords. You gotta be able to, like, for example. Okay, and this pertains a little bit to the question, right? You go ahead and put your military stuff on there. I completely agree. Go for it. You did it. You accomplished it. I would put it on there, but make sure also that it's also pertaining to what you're trying to apply for. So if a requisition says you need X amount of experience, like five years of experience or whatever with using Microsoft Office, and you have 10 or 20, put it on there. I have 20 years of experience using Microsoft Office. And go down the list and put it on there. Okay. Because that right there is what will get you through to the recruiter and hopefully to the desk of the hiring manager. So making sure that your resume meets and even exceeds those requirements is big, as well as the length of the resume. I highly suggest 2 pages. At the most, that's what you have. If you exceed 2 pages, I would highly suggest you trim it a little bit down as much as you can to stick to the 2. If you meet the desired skills, okay, or now they have it as skills we highly desire or whatever, what I would suggest is to use the cover letter for that. The cover letter is big, right? Don't just do the I love me page, right? So they like to call it I love me, I love me. No, if you meet those desired skills as well, that's where you put it right there, that I even meet your desired skills and I should be looked at. That's what that's for. And then your resume comes in the back, says I also meet your requirements. What do you got to say? Right. So use it like that in that example, so when you put your military skills up there, I'd highly suggest, put it on there and just list them out, like just in that nature.
That's a
Looks
really
like we
good
just got
point.
Looks like we just got a question from Diego. Hey, Diego. He said, Alex, will Raytheon hire non-clearance person for a clearance position and sponsor the clearance?
Yes, yes, as long as you meet the minimum requirements of the position and the job requisition states, okay, the wording on the requisition needs to state that you're eligible to get a clearance. If it says clearance required before hiring, then it automatically will disqualify you. But if it says eligible to get a clearance or something of that along those lines, because each requisition has a little bit of different wording, as long as it states that you can get it afterwards, then yes, as long as you meet the minimum requirements of the position, apply, apply, apply. Don't give up, because a lot of folks, they'll apply and then they'll be like, "Oh, I didn't hear anything back within a week or two." It's like, so recruiters see hundreds and hundreds of resumes and applications all the time, every day. So the big thing is, right, patience. right? Apply, apply, apply. Like I said, and I put my info in the chat. So if anyone has any questions as well, I'm more than happy to answer questions and help in that manner. But yes, the answer to the question is yes. They will get you a clearance as long as you meet the minimum requirements of the position.
Great question, Diego. Thank you. Well, like, do we have any other questions?
We don't have any other questions. Heather mentioned in the chat, what do reference know about these resources that you're describing? And I think that U.S.VETS gets the word out, right? I mean,
We do. So I'm sorry, say that question one more time.
so I mean, Heather wrote that she's not a veteran. She found this workshop very useful
Oh,
still, and she's wondering if the veterans in our area who are ready to enter the civilian workforce know about this resource. And I
yes,
presume
yes,
that the
yeah,
resource is
so of
U.S.VETS
course,
and all
yeah.
those things that you're talking about.
Specifically, yeah, so all of our resources, yeah, we definitely we definitely use LinkedIn as our biggest medium for sharing resources and putting out all the workshops that we're doing, the career fairs that we're doing. We put up some really good tools as we see them. We also share a lot of information about other workshops that you can go to and hiring events and meetings with recruiters. There's tons of stuff out there. We have a huge constant contact newsletter, so it might be geared a little bit more towards veterans, but if you're still interested in receiving that, feel free to share your contact information with me. I am happy to share this with military spouses, with, dependents. I frequently get military spouses, even though we don't necessarily have a program that focuses on that. I will always take a military spouse in, being a military spouse myself. I'll do their resume. I'll introduce them to recruiters. Um, we've got tons of partners that are looking to hire the military spouse as well as their dependents. I'm sure Raytheon has a big hiring initiative there as well. So while we focus most of our content on that, we do speak to everybody. And honestly, the translating your military skill set, probably not the best one for anyone who's not a veteran, because probably a lot of this might not necessarily make sense to you, but the principles are the same, right? You may have worked in a field that is completely different from the field that you're going into now, but using that industry acronyms and those jargon and things. If I've never heard about sales before and someone's telling me, well, the sales cadence and all this stuff, I wouldn't know what they're talking about. I don't know what my husband's talking about when he says some stuff to me. So dummy it down still, like you're talking to your grandmother. You still, the principles are the same, right? It's just the military is just a different industry. So if you're interested in getting these resources or jumping in on a career fair, totally fine. Just drop your email in there and I'll share that information with you.
Yeah, and for military spouses, we do have a massive initiative as that as well. Like I said, being the military liaison, that is one of my things as well. We have a program called the Re-Empower program, which is for military spouses who have taken a career break a little bit longer than 2 years and are looking to reintegrate back. It's a great program to try and get back into the workforce and for military spouses. So we have a lot of different things for spouses in transition military and even military that are already out, so veterans. So please, any questions like that, we're definitely here to help.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, we are a little bit over our time, but this is great. Thanks for these great questions, and thank you so much to Alex for doing this alongside of me. You've provided some fantastic insight. Do we have any last minute questions?
We don't have any last minute questions. I will close up the program. I have a couple of announcements to make before I close it up, but before any announcements, thank you, Jennifer, and thank you, Alex, for sharing your wisdom and your experience. And I
Thanks
love the
for
back and
having
forth.
us.
I think that worked really well.
Yeah.
Of
Thank
course.
you. Thanks. Yeah, no, this is great. This is probably one of the best ones we've done so far. So thank you. I really appreciate it.